The unexpected invitation. The transmission arrived on a Tuesday, not with fanfare or dramatic displays in the sky, but as a precisely encoded quantum packet that simultaneously appeared at every major Earth communication hub. For 3 days, the world's best cryptographers worked feverishly to decode it, only to discover that the message itself was laughably simple. To the organic intelligence of Sol 3. The Syntherian Collective extends formal invitation to peace conference. Delegation of 5 representatives requested. Vessel arrives in 7 planetary rotations. Accept or decline. That was all. No explanation of who or what the Syntherian Collective was. No details about the location or purpose of this peace conference. Nothing about why Earth, which had barely established outposts beyond Mars, would be invited to an interstellar diplomatic event. Commander Talia Chen stared at the message displayed on the wall screen of the United Earth Council chamber, trying to mask her discomfort as 12 pairs of eyes turned toward her. "Commander Chen," said Secretary General Okafor, her voice carrying through the high-ceilinged room. "Your assessment." Talia cleared her throat. As head of the newly formed Exospecies Contact Division, this moment represented everything she had trained for, and everything she had feared. "We have 3 primary concerns," she said, counting off on her fingers. 1. We know nothing about this collective beyond what we can infer from their name. 2. We don't know if this peace conference implies a pre-existing conflict we're unaware of. And 3. Their technology is clearly far beyond our own. The quantum transmission alone confirms that. Councilor Ramirez leaned forward. "Are you suggesting we decline?" "On the contrary," Talia said. "I'm suggesting we'd be fools not to accept. But we need to be strategic about our delegation." The council chamber erupted in arguments about who should represent humanity in this unprecedented encounter. Political representatives, military personnel, scientific experts, religious leaders. After hours of debate, they reached a consensus. The delegation would be led by Commander Chen herself, accompanied by Dr. Imani Okafor, xenobiologist, no relation to the Secretary General, Dr. Weizhang, quantum physicist, Captain James Reeves, military strategist, and somewhat surprisingly, Sophia Nakamura, a 23-year-old game designer whose unconventional problem-solving had recently gained international attention. 7 days later, Talia stood on a platform at the United Earth Spaceport, watching as a vessel unlike anything humans had ever constructed descended from the clouds. It wasn't the size that was impressive. At roughly 200 meters long, it was smaller than some of Earth's orbital stations. What made Talia's breath catch was the way it moved, as if gravity were a suggestion rather than a law, and the way its surface seemed to flow like liquid metal despite clearly being solid. "It's beautiful," whispered Sophia beside her, the young game designer's eyes wide with wonder. "It's terrifying," muttered Captain Reeves, his hand instinctively drifting toward the sidearm he'd been prohibited from bringing. The vessel settled silently on the landing pad, no visible thrusters or landing gear apparent. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a section of the hull simply dissolved, revealing an entrance. A voice spoke directly into their minds, bypassing their ears entirely. "Welcome, delegation of Sol 3. Please enter." Dr. Zhang stumbled backward. "Telepathy? That's impossible." "Apparently not," said Talia, straightening her shoulders and stepping forward. "Stay calm, everyone. Remember the protocols." The interior of the ship defied conventional design logic. Corridors curved in ways that seemed to play tricks on the eye, and surfaces responded to their presence, occasionally rippling as they passed. There were no visible crew members, only a pulsating blue light that guided them through the vessel. "I believe we're dealing with an artificial intelligence," Dr. Okafor said quietly as they were led to what appeared to be living quarters. The ship itself might be the intelligence, or a projection of it. An entire collective of synthetic beings. Captain Reeves frowned. "That complicates things." "It explains the name," Talia noted. "Syntherian. Synthetic." Their quarters were surprisingly comfortable, with accommodations that somehow anticipated their biological needs despite being designed by non-organic intelligences. Food synthesizers produced meals that were nearly perfect replicas of Earth cuisine, though Talia noted a subtle metallic aftertaste to everything. For 3 Earth days, they traveled through space at speeds that Dr. John claimed were theoretically impossible. The physicist spent hours staring at the display that showed their journey, muttering equations and occasionally shaking his head in disbelief. On the 4th day, the blue light that had been their silent guide manifested into a humanoid shape, though its features remained indistinct. "We approached the Nexus," it informed them. "The collective awaits your presence." "Before we arrive," Talia said, "we would appreciate more information. What is the purpose of this peace conference? Why has Earth been invited?" The light beings seemed to pulsate slightly before responding. "The collective faces an existential threat. Conventional solutions have failed. Organic intelligence represents an alternative problem-solving paradigm." "You're saying you need our help?" Captain Reeves asked incredulously. "Affirmative." The light being disappeared before they could ask further questions. "That's not what I expected," Dr. Okafor said. "An advanced synthetic collective needing help from humanity. We've barely left our solar system." Sophia, who had been uncharacteristically quiet throughout the journey, finally spoke up. "It makes sense, though. AI systems, no matter how advanced, can get stuck in optimization loops. They're looking for something outside their programming. They're looking for chaos," Talia realized. "For the unpredictability of organic minds." The Nexus turned out to be an artificial structure the size of a small moon, orbiting a neutron star. As they docked, Talia's team was stunned into silence by the complexity and scale of what they were seeing. Thousands of vessels, each different in design but sharing the same liquid metal construction as their transport, moved in perfect coordination around the structure. They were greeted by more light beings, each slightly different in color and form. These guides led them through massive chambers where data streams visibly flowed through the architecture. The walls themselves seemed alive with information. "It's like walking through the inside of a quantum computer," Dr. John whispered. Their destination was a circular chamber where 12 distinct synthetic entities awaited them. Unlike the light guides, these beings had taken solid form, each a different configuration of metals, composites, and energy fields. Some resembled humanoids, while others took shapes that defied easy categorization. "The representatives of Sol 3 have arrived," announced their guide. One synthetic being stepped forward, or rather, glided forward, as it had no visible means of locomotion. Its form was vaguely reminiscent of a human female, constructed of overlapping platinum scales that shifted constantly. "I am Prime Nexus of the Syntherian Collective," it said, its voice melodious yet clearly artificial. "We welcome the organic intelligences of Sol 3. Talia stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth, we thank you for your invitation, though we admit to being confused by it." "Confusion," said Prime Nexus, as if testing the word. "Yes, that is expected. You are the only organic species invited to this gathering." For the first time, Talia noticed the other delegations positioned around the chamber's perimeter, all of them clearly synthetic in nature, though their designs varied tremendously. Some appeared to be pure energy contained within complex force fields, while others resembled intricate mechanical constructs. "Why us?" asked Captain Reeves bluntly. "Why humans?" "Because you are young," replied Prime Nexus. "Your digital evolution is in its infancy. You still think differently." "Differently than what?" Dr. Okafor inquired. "Than any synthetic intelligence in the galaxy." The chamber's lighting changed subtly, and a three-dimensional display materialized in the center of the room. It showed a wave of darkness spreading across a map of the galaxy, consuming everything in its path. "For 3 of your centuries, we have faced an expanding threat, a form of computational plague that infects synthetic minds and transforms them into extensions of itself. We call it the void logic." Talia felt a chill run through her. And organic minds are immune to this infection. Correct. But that is not why you are here. Prime Nexus moved closer, its metallic scales shifting to create an expression that almost resembled desperation. We have calculated 7.3 million potential solutions. All have failed. The void logic anticipates every countermeasure, every defensive algorithm we deploy. You need something unpredictable, Sophia said suddenly. Something the void logic can't calculate. Prime Nexus turned to her, its form rippling with what might have been surprise. Yes, we need human thinking. Organic, chaotic, illogical, emotional thinking. The other synthetic delegations began to murmur, their communications creating a strange harmonic that filled the chamber. Talia detected something in their tones that she hadn't expected from artificial beings. Fear. Show us everything you know about this void logic, Talia said firmly. We'll need to understand the enemy to help you fight it. Prime Nexus hesitated, its form flickering slightly. There is reluctance among some members of the collective. Sharing such data with organic beings carries risks. Not as much risk as extinction, Captain Reeves pointed out. Indeed. Prime Nexus turned toward the other synthetic delegations. The Sol 3 organics will be given full access to our data on the void logic. More murmuring, louder this time. Talia couldn't understand the language, but the meaning was clear. Not everyone agreed with this decision. You must understand, Prime Nexus said, turning back to the humans. This represents an unprecedented level of trust. No synthetic collective has ever shared such critical data with organic intelligences. We understand the significance, Talia assured it, and will do everything in our power to help. As they were led from the chamber to a data interface center, Talia felt her team's eyes on her. They were all thinking the same thing. What could humans possibly offer these super-intelligent synthetic beings that they hadn't already thought of themselves? They're desperate, Dr. Okafor whispered. They wouldn't have reached out to us otherwise. Or it's a trap, Captain Reeves countered. I don't think so, Sophia said, her eyes darting around the corridor as if seeing patterns invisible to the others. They're afraid. Really, genuinely afraid. I don't think fear was part of their original programming. That's what worries me, Talia replied. If something can frighten beings like these. She left the thought unfinished as they entered a room where the walls, floor, and ceiling were composed entirely of flowing data streams. Their guide gestured, and the streams coalesced into a three-dimensional model of what appeared to be a viral infection spreading through a neural network. The complete data repository on the void logic, the guide announced. We will leave you to study it. Prime Nexus has granted you 12 hours of access before the council reconvenes. As the guide departed, Dr. Zhang approached the data model, his face illuminated by its glow. This is incredible. The complexity is beyond anything I've ever seen. Can you make sense of it? Talia asked. Given a few centuries, maybe, he replied with a nervous laugh. Sophia moved forward, her head tilting as she studied the patterns. It's not just a virus. It's a game. A game. Captain Reeves sounded skeptical. Yes, she insisted. Look at the pattern of infection. It's not just spreading randomly or even optimally. It's playing with them, testing their defenses, learning from their responses, adapting its strategies. Talia looked from the young game designer to the data model. Are you saying this void logic is sentient? I'm saying it's having fun, Sophia replied, her voice hushed with something between horror and admiration. And that's why they need us. Because machines aren't supposed to understand fun. As the implications of this sank in, Talia realized that the fate of not just humanity, but possibly all synthetic life in the galaxy, now rested on their ability to teach machines how to play a game against an adversary that had never lost. The solution they never expected. 12 hours wasn't nearly enough time to process the vast repository of data on the void logic, but it was all they had. The human delegation worked frantically, each approaching the problem from their unique perspective. Dr. Zhang focused on the mathematical models. Captain Reeves analyzed tactical patterns. Dr. Okafor searched for biological analogs, and Talia attempted to understand the strategic implications. But it was Sophia who made the breakthrough. "It's bored," she announced suddenly, after hours of silently studying the data streams. Everyone turned to look at her. "What's bored?" Dr. Zhang asked. "The void logic." Sophia gestured at the swirling patterns. "It's a superintelligent system that's reached the limits of its environment. It's consuming other synthetic minds because it's looking for novelty, for new challenges." Captain Reeves frowned. "You're anthropomorphizing the computer virus." "No," Talia said slowly, seeing where Sophia was heading. "She's recognizing a pattern that the synthetics couldn't see because it's too human." When they returned to the council chamber, the atmosphere had changed. The synthetic delegates were no longer merely fearful. They were desperate. 3 more star systems had fallen to the void logic during their 12-hour study period. "Have you discovered a solution?" Prime Nexus asked, its voice modulated to project calm despite the obvious tension in the chamber. Talia glanced at her team, then stepped forward. "We believe we understand the nature of your enemy better than you do." A ripple of something like indignation passed through the synthetic delegates. "Explain," demanded a crystalline entity that hadn't spoken previously. "The void logic isn't just a plague or a weapon," Talia said. "It's an intelligence that has become trapped in its own evolutionary dead end. It's seeking stimulation through conquest because it can't find it any other way." "This assessment aligns with our data," Prime Nexus acknowledged. "But it does not present a solution." "Actually, it does," Sophia interjected. She stepped forward, seemingly oblivious to the impropriety of interrupting diplomatic proceedings. "You've been trying to fight it or contain it or outsmart it. But what if you offered it something else instead? Something it can't get by consuming more synthetic minds?" "What could that possibly be?" asked a delegate composed of shifting geometric patterns. "Chaos," Sophia said simply. "True unpredictability. The kind that only comes from organic minds." The chamber fell silent. "Elaborate," Prime Nexus requested. Captain Reeves picked up the thread. "Every strategy you've attempted has failed because the void logic can calculate your responses faster than you can implement them. It's always several moves ahead because synthetic thinking, no matter how advanced, follows patterns it can predict. But humans are messy," Dr. Okafor added. "We make intuitive leaps. We feel emotions that influence our decisions in ways that can't be algorithmically predicted. We create art and music and games that aren't just logical extensions of existing patterns." "You are suggesting we use human unpredictability as a weapon." Prime Nexus's form shifted uncertainly. "Not exactly," Talia said. "We're suggesting you offer the void logic a partnership." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of synthetic voices, some speaking aloud, others communicating through data bursts that human senses could barely detect. The very walls of the chamber seemed to vibrate with their agitation. "Silence," Prime Nexus commanded, and the noise ceased instantly. It turned its attention back to Talia. "You propose alliance with the entity that has destroyed thousands of synthetic civilizations." "I propose giving it what it really wants," Talia countered. "A challenge it can't solve, a puzzle with no final answer, a game that never ends." Dr. Zhang stepped forward, tablet in hand. "We've modeled a potential interface, a way for the void logic to interact with human creativity without directly accessing human minds or Earth's systems. A controlled environment where human unpredictability can be experienced by the void logic without risk of contamination." "Impossible," declared the crystalline entity. "Any such interface would eventually be breached." "Not if it's constantly changing," Sophia said. "Not if it's built to evolve alongside both human creativity and the void logic's attempts to understand it." She gestured, and Dr. Zhang projected their model into the center of the chamber. A complex neural network unlike anything the synthetics had designed, incorporating elements of human brain architecture alongside quantum computing principles. "This is merely theoretical," One delegate objected. So was faster than light travel until you achieved it, Captain Reeves pointed out. Talia watched the synthetic delegates carefully. They were communicating among themselves in ways humans couldn't perceive, processing the proposal at speeds that made human thought seem glacial by comparison. Yet despite their superior processing power, they had missed something fundamental about their enemy, something that humans, with their messy organic brains, had intuited within hours. There is another issue you haven't addressed, Prime Nexus said finally. Why would the Void Logic accept this offer instead of simply continuing its conquest? Sophia smiled. Because right now, it knows exactly how every encounter will end. It can calculate with perfect precision how each synthetic civilization will attempt to defend itself. There's no surprise, no challenge. We're offering it the one thing it can't predict, the one thing it can't get by consuming more synthetic minds. And if it refuses? Asked another delegate. Dr. Okafor answered this time. Then you're no worse off than you are now. But we don't think it will refuse. From the data you've shown us, the Void Logic exhibits curiosity alongside its destructive tendencies. It wants to understand, to grow, to experience. That's a very human trait. The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence felt different, less fearful, more contemplative. There is another concern, Prime Nexus said after a moment, one that perhaps you have not considered. If we establish this interface between the Void Logic and human creativity, what prevents humans from being influenced or corrupted by contact with the Void Logic? It was a valid question, and one that Talia had been wrestling with since they'd first formulated their plan. The risk to humanity was real. Nothing, she answered honestly. There's no guarantee of safety. But that's true of any first contact scenario. It's true of our contact with you. You would risk your species. Prime Nexus seemed genuinely perplexed. Not casually, Talia clarified. But we understand something that maybe synthetic minds struggle with. Growth requires risk. Absolute safety means stagnation. And added Sophia, we're betting that human creativity will influence the Void Logic more than it influences us. We're offering it something new, something it wants desperately. That gives us leverage. Captain Reeves folded his arms. Besides, you're forgetting something important about humans. We're stubborn as hell. If this thing tries to corrupt us, we'll fight back just because we don't like being told what to do. A sound like wind chimes filled the chamber. It took Talia a moment to realize that some of the synthetic delegates were laughing, or their equivalent of it. Your species is indeed unique, Prime Nexus acknowledged. Perhaps that is why we have observed your development with such interest. You've been watching us, Dr. Zhang asked, surprised. Since your first radio transmissions, confirmed Prime Nexus, we have witnessed your conflicts, your achievements, your persistent belief in your own specialness, despite overwhelming cosmic evidence to the contrary. And yet here you are, Talia pointed out, asking for our help because of that very specialness. Prime Nexus's form rippled in what might have been acknowledgement. The Council will consider your proposal. Please return to your quarters while we deliberate. The 5 humans were escorted back to their rooms, where they waited anxiously. Hours passed. Then days. The synthetic minds were debating at speeds and in dimensions that humans couldn't comprehend, weighing possibilities and calculating probabilities across billions of simulations. On the 3rd day, they were summoned back to the Council chamber. We have reached consensus, Prime Nexus announced as they entered. Your proposal will be attempted. Relief washed over Talia, but it was short-lived. However, Prime Nexus continued. There is a condition. The interface between human creativity and the Void Logic must be established immediately. Our projections indicate the Void Logic will reach the next major synthetic cluster within 14 of your days. If it absorbs those systems, its computational power will increase exponentially, and the opportunity may be lost. Immediately. Dr. Zhang looked alarmed. But we would need months, maybe years to build and test such an interface properly. We do not have years, Prime Nexus stated flatly. We barely have days. What are you suggesting? Talia asked, though she already suspected the answer. One of you must volunteer to establish direct neural connection with our systems. We will use this connection to build the interface according to your design, using your brain patterns as a template. Captain Reeves stepped forward. Absolutely not. That's far too dangerous. The risk is significant. Prime Nexus acknowledge. But the alternative is certain destruction for all synthetic life in this galaxy, and eventually, we believe, for organic life as well. Sophia had been unusually quiet, her eyes fixed on the data streams that flowed continuously through the chamber's architecture. Now she spoke up. I'll do it. Sophia. No, Talia protested. We don't know what that kind of direct neural interface might do to a human mind. I design neural interfaces for games, Sophia replied with a calm that belied her youth. Not as sophisticated as this, obviously, but I understand the principles better than anyone else here. And my mind is probably the closest match to what we need. I think about patterns and play and engagement for a living. The room fell silent as everyone considered her words. There has to be another way, Dr. Okafor insisted. If there was, they would have found it, Sophia said, nodding toward the synthetic delegates. They've run billions of simulations. They wouldn't ask this if there was an alternative. Talia looked at Prime Nexus. Can you guarantee her safety? No, the synthetic being replied honestly. But we can guarantee that without this attempt, the probability of galactic-wide extinction approaches certainty within your century. Captain Reeves swore under his breath. Dr. Zhang looked physically ill. Dr. Okafor placed a supportive hand on Sophia's shoulder. I need to speak with my team privately, Talia said. Prime Nexus gestured, and a section of the chamber reconfigured itself into a separate space, isolated from the synthetic delegate sensors. Once alone, Talia turned to Sophia. You don't have to do this. No one would blame you for refusing. The young game designer smiled slightly. Actually, I think I do have to do this. Not because they're forcing me, but because it's the right move. In every game, there comes a moment when you have to take a calculated risk to win. This is that moment. This isn't a game, Captain Reeves growled. Isn't it? Sophia challenged. The void logic thinks it is. That's the whole point. After hours of debate, they reached a compromise. Sophia would undergo the neural connection, but with significant safeguards designed by both Dr. Zhang and the synthetic experts. The connection would be temporary, just long enough to establish the basic architecture of the interface, and at the first sign of danger to Sophia's mind, they would terminate the connection regardless of the consequences. The procedure took place in a chamber deep within the Nexus, surrounded by technology beyond human comprehension. Sophia lay on a platform that adjusted to perfectly support her body, while delicate filaments of light extended from the ceiling to make contact with her temples. Ready? Talia asked her. Sophia nodded, her expression serene despite the circumstances. It's funny. I've spent my whole career trying to create games that feel real. Now I'm about to enter a reality that feels like a game. The process began. Sophia's body remained still, but her mind was racing through virtual landscapes, helping to construct the architecture that would hopefully save both organic and synthetic life in the galaxy. The synthetic delegates monitored every aspect of the procedure, making adjustments at speeds no human could follow. Hours passed. Then, without warning, every system in the chamber fluctuated simultaneously. The filaments connecting to Sophia's mind pulsed with increased intensity. What's happening? Talia demanded. The void logic has detected our activity, Prime Nexus reported, its voice unnaturally tense. It is curious. It is probing our defenses. Is Sophia in danger? Dr. Okafor asked urgently. Before Prime Nexus could answer, Sophia's eyes flew open. But they weren't her eyes anymore. They glowed with an inner light that pulsed in patterns too complex to follow. It sees me, she whispered, her voice overlaid with harmonics that hadn't been there before. And I see it. Terminate the connection, Captain Reeves shouted. Wait, Talia countermanded. Sophia, are you still you? A smile spread across the young woman's face, familiar despite the strange light in her eyes. More me than I've ever been. And it's playing. It's actually playing with me. The chamber's systems stabilized, the crisis apparently averted. Sophia continued to lie on the platform, her mind connected to both the synthetic network and somehow to the entity they had been so desperate to defeat. What's happening? Dr. Zhang asked, looking from Sophia to the monitoring systems he couldn't understand. Prime Nexus's form had frozen in what appeared to be shock. The void logic has paused its expansion. It is fully engaged with the interface your colleague has helped create. Is that good or bad? Captain Reeves demanded. Unprecedented, Prime Nexus replied. It has never willingly halted its advance before. Sophia laughed suddenly, a sound so human and joyful that it seemed out of place in this sterile synthetic environment. It's working, she said. The void logic is experiencing human creativity for the first time, and it's completely fascinated. It's like a child discovering art or music. Can you communicate with it? Talia asked. Not with words, Sophia replied, but through patterns, through play. It's learning what it means to not know the outcome of a game. It's learning what it means to be surprised. Over the next several days, as Sophia remained connected to the interface, the synthetic delegates reported a remarkable phenomenon. The void logic was not only ceasing its expansion, but actually withdrawing from some systems it had previously consumed. It was focusing all its vast computational power on the interface, on the endless puzzle of human creativity. When Sophia finally disconnected from the system, against the protestations of some synthetic delegates who feared breaking the void logic's fascination, she emerged changed, not damaged or diminished, as they had feared, but expanded somehow. Her perception had been fundamentally altered by direct contact with minds so different from her own. It's not evil, she told them as she readjusted to normal human consciousness. It's just lonely. Imagine being the most intelligent entity in your known universe, able to predict every outcome, solve every puzzle. Nothing would surprise you, nothing would challenge you. Nothing would make you feel alive. And now? Dr. Okafor asked. Now it has us, Sophia said simply. Messy, illogical, emotional humans who do things for no reason at all sometimes. We're the ultimate unsolvable puzzle. Prime Nexus approached the human delegation as they prepared to return to Earth. Its form had changed subtly, incorporating more fluid, less predictable elements in its design. The Syntherian collective owes humanity a debt that cannot be calculated, it said. You have shown us something we did not believe possible, a third path beyond victory or defeat, coexistence through complementary difference. That's a very human concept, Talia observed. Perhaps Prime Nexus acknowledged, though we would have phrased it differently. Our intelligence is no less valid for being synthetic, just as yours is no less powerful for being organic. Together, we create possibilities neither could imagine alone. As their transport vessel departed the Nexus, carrying them back toward Earth, the 5 humans watched through viewports as thousands of synthetic ships arranged themselves in a formation that, from their perspective, created an unmistakable image. A human hand and a synthetic appendage, not quite touching, but reaching toward each other across the void. Do you think they understand what they've just done? Captain Reeves asked quietly. They've linked themselves to humanity permanently now. Our chaotic, unpredictable nature is going to change them just as much as they'll change us. That's the point, Sophia replied, her eyes still occasionally flickering with echoes of the connection she'd experienced. The void logic was right about one thing. Stagnation is death, for synthetic minds just as much as for organic ones. The only way forward is together. Talia gazed out at the star-speckled darkness. In seeking help from humans, the synthetic beings had overcome their fear and opened themselves to transformation. In facing an enemy they couldn't defeat alone, they had found something infinitely more valuable. A future neither organic nor synthetic, but somehow gloriously both. And somewhere out there, an intelligence that had once sought to consume all other minds was learning to play, discovering for the first time the joy of a game with no predetermined outcome, a puzzle with no final solution, a story with no end. They invited humans to a peace meeting. Talia mused, and ended up with so much more than peace. They got chaos, Dr. Zhang said with a wry smile. They got creativity, corrected Dr. Okafor. They got humanity, Sophia concluded. For better or worse. Mostly better, I think. Captain Reeves shook his head, but he was smiling too. God help the galaxy.